So safety. And the number one thing that I want to make sure everybody understands that when the blade is moving, whether it's powered or not, the safety brake will engage. So if you turn the machine off, push the paddle in, and it's coasting down, and you go to put your finger in there to remove some waste, and you touch the blade, the brake's going to engage, and the blade is going to, so you're $200 in the hole at that point. Okay, and we did have somebody actually do that. So when the blade is moving, and actually the lights will tell you when it's ready to, that it's stopped. So when on coast down, the green light will flash until the coast down is finished. Okay, when you get a solid green light, then you're safe. Okay, before that, as I said, you touch it, it's going to pop. So just keep that in mind. Please, when you leave the saw for the day, if you've cleaned it up, close the blast gate, bring the blade down below the surface, and make sure that the hot power switch is off. Okay, so the way you see it right now is the way you should leave it. Now, I'm not suggesting you need to do that every time you move away from the saw. Just at the end of the day, nobody else is here, nobody else is going to use the saw. When you leave and cleaned it up, that's the way it should be done. Make sure that you put the blade guard down before you turn the blade on. Because if you turn the blade on and then put it down, you see how much play is in there? All of this plastic will get caught up and get disintegrated. The last time that happened, it cost us $200 to replace. So keep it up, line your blade up, line everything up, then put it down, hold on to your piece and turn the blade on. Very simple. Okay? And you'll know right away when you screwed up. It won't take much. Make sure that you turn the saw off using the pedal, not the power switch. Okay, I've gotten lots of calls from people saying the saw is going nuts, the lights are flashing like this. And what's happened is somebody has turned the power off, the saw off using the power switch, and the paddle is still out, right? It'll turn off because there's no power to it. But then when you go to use it again, it knows there's a problem, and it's going to give you that flashing light, okay? And immediately, you can just look and see, just put the paddle back in, turn the power switch off, go through the process from the beginning, and you'll be fine, okay? But I have had Sunday mornings come down here and say, yep, that's the problem. And by the way, the fact that the lights are flashing, all the error codes are sitting on the side of the. So if you've done something and it doesn't like it, it's pretty good to tell you what it is that it doesn't like.
And I might add, the paddle is here for a reason. If I'm working the saw, I can turn this on and off with my leg. That's why the paddle's there. Then you keep your hands up here and you're out of the way. You're not letting it go of something. That's why they put it where they did. Very helpful.
Make sure that you turn the blast gate on, pull it on and turn the dust collector on, and make sure that there isn't a buildup of sawdust. So if you're sitting here for a long time cutting lots of wood, sometimes, even if you've got all that on, it can build up more sawdust than it can handle. So if things start to pop up, a lot of sawdust come out here, shut everything down and look underneath and see what's going on. Look at the hose to see what's clogged up. Sometimes I come in here and I can look up here and I can see it's just packed up in there, and there's nothing. And it could be this person before you that did it, could be you that did it. But if you see sawdust not being cleared, stop and look. And don't over tighten the blade. Tighten and snug here, don't over tighten. They do not need to be over tighten. And they will tighten by themselves as the blade spins.
Yeah.
How to cut thin pieces of wood safely, okay? So I've got this piece of wood here, and I'm going to cut this rabbet off, okay? Now, raise this up a little bit. If I move the fence here and I cut it right there, you'll notice that there's not really any room in here for a push stick, okay? And you can get yourself bind up there pretty well if you do it this way. And it's even worse if you want to do that, okay? So the best thing I can cut, go ahead, just what you see. Yeah, see how close, I'm getting closer and closer. At this point, I can't even get it any closer because of that. So we're going to use what's called our little gripper tool. Now the gripper has a lot of advantages, but a couple of disadvantages. One is you can't use it with the blade guard in place because you would run into it. Okay, in some cases you can't have the blade guard there anyway because you're too close to the fence. And you can't use the feather board because this is in the way. But let me demonstrate how this works. I'm going to take the blade guard off. Put this back on here. And I'm going to bring this over to where I want it, right about there. Okay? So now I'm going to lock it in place. Now, I've adjusted the gripper. The gripper has a spot where you can use you see the different thicknesses of pieces in there? You can turn this thing around, you can move that center piece. The idea is to get this set on your piece of wood and then look down to make sure that the blade is, number one, not higher than the space here, okay? And it's going to go through that tunnel, okay? Somebody didn't do that, and this is what happened. Okay? Somebody cut it right through. No idea who did that, but okay, these are $60 or $70. Okay. So you want to adjust those pieces going back and forth until you've got the blade low enough to get through your tunnel, but high enough to cut your piece of wood. Okay?
It should be up against the fence.
Exactly, right up against the fence, just like that, okay? And then just the height of this thing so that it's flat. See how that, so this is flat against the table and this is flat. And these little green things are really good at gripping, okay? And then what you do is you move the piece through the saw all the way through. Now, if you got a long piece, we're going to have to stop and reset. Okay. They actually recommend you have 2 of these, and you do it like this. I've never done it that way, but if you look at the instructions, that's what they say you do. Okay. I will demonstrate. Can you open the last kit, please? Now you'll notice that I stood to the side of the blade because this thing here is kind of off in Never Never Land. Once it stopped, it could have gotten caught and sent back to right into Mr. Mott's stump there. So stand to the side if you can so that you're not, it's unlikely you're going to have a problem because you're pushing down on it, but safety is the issue. Okay? Any questions? I would recommend that if you're going to do this sort of thing, find yourself some sample pieces in the box and play with it before you play with your real pieces of wood. Okay? And or call me up or call anybody who's done it before to watch you do it. We'd be happy to make sure that you're doing it safely.
And I made a jig that I don't know if many of you guys have seen it. We're making real thin strips. If you know the weaving stuff we do, you make a real thin strip. With this jig, you can push this and make a real tiny, easy, thin strip by adjusting, you know, the fence this way. This is for a 12-inch, and back there on the wall, there's one for a longer one. If you want to make a real, it's really safe. It's really nice and easy. You can use the fence.
So, I have a piece of plywood here, and I wanna put a groove in the bottom of that plywood. So I would go like this. You see that you have a tendency to tip like this. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna take the blade, I'm gonna move it down, and it's only cutting a little bit of a curve in there. And then I'm gonna take this jig, I'm going to put it next to the fence like this. And take these clamps. These clamps are located in the top drawer, right up there, here. And this is located, I have hangers down here. So we're going to tighten this up. Okay. And I'm going to, I don't care about where it ends up being, somewhere in the middle is fine. Just like that. Okay. And again, here you could, doing it this way, you could probably get away without this thing.
Right.
But if you're doing this, that's where you need the support, okay? Now, I knew I brought one of these over here. So normally I wouldn't use one of these, but most people I would recommend, especially if you've never done it before, you use this to keep your fingers away from the blade and also to put the pressure against this. You want to make sure that the pressure is against the face of the fence, okay? Now, there's also another feature here, if you're putting something through this fairly long that has a little bow in it, you can use this track, and this normally is setting it there, and this track will keep your piece down on the tabletop. Okay, I couldn't find a piece of wood that I could demonstrate with. I actually, after I did this, because I needed this piece about where it is, we probably, in order to do something that's this, well, that would probably work.
Yeah.
You know, there's a spot where I needed that to be lower, but this will work fine. Okay, so if you've got an 8-foot piece of something, and you're trying to get through it, and 8 foot, it's not gonna be flat, almost for sure. Put the featherboard in there, push it down, and as it goes through the fence, it'll keep it down. And in this case, normally, when we use featherboards, remember your training, you never want to put the featherboard against the blade, because you're pushing the wood into the blade. In this case, you could go right over top of it, because you're not, and obviously these are not for through cuts. Through cuts, so if you, well, I suppose if you were cutting out here like this, you just gotta make sure that you're not cutting the feathers. If you cut it, you might have wanted to keep that against the fence, and you know that you could use a feather board to keep your fingers away from there, and you always want to make sure that the first tine is behind your blade, okay? Because you don't want to push against the blade, because as you're creating your kerf, you would actually be pushing the wood into the blade and causing kickback. You want to keep it just behind the blade like that. And don't go too tight, because you don't want to have to force the board through. You want to be able to push it through comfortably, but snug enough so that it keeps it against the blade. So one less thing you have to worry about as you're pushing your